Welcome to Real Estate in Real Time. I'm your host, Woody Zimmerman, here with Mark Skabowski of Remax Lakes. Welcome to the show.
Here we are. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. And here we are. So I tell you, I told you this off air, but I'll bring it back up. So I was on a conference call with radio station owners around the country, and every one of them talked about how the real estate market in their individual markets, it's hot. It's been hot across the country.
Yeah, it's been pretty warm for quite a while. You know, we've talked, if you listen back to 2 years ago when we were doing this, it's never going to continue. It won't continue. Well, guess what? It has continued as far as the pace of the market. The number of buyers that are out there looking, you know, when it's all this big perfect storm of stuff that's leading to, hey, now's the best time in the world to buy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really what I want to talk about today is we've got people that are, you know, they're at work, right? We all not hanging around the water cooler because you probably don't see that very much anymore.
Not much lately.
Not much anymore.
Right.
But you got to be socially distanced.
Yeah.
But you know, at lunchtime, or you're talking to friends, hey, I'm thinking about buying. Oh yeah, you got to buy. Mm-hmm. Now is the time to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, putting that in the buyer's perspective, are you financially ready to buy? Mm-hmm. Are you really ready to buy? Just because it's a great time to do it, is it a great time for you? You know, this is an individual decision, you know, or a family decision that somebody has to make.
Sure.
Because it's going to be probably the single largest investment that you're going to make. Mm-hmm. You know, we watch the stock market. Oh, this is the greatest stock in the world. You ought to buy this today, right? Well, if Mark buys it, guess what? It's going down. So don't take my investment advice when it comes to stocks. But that always seems to be the case, right? We're trailing. We're not leading the curve. We're trailing. So we're trying to ride the wave, but maybe we should get off the wave. Mm-hmm. So, you know, here I'm a sales guy. I want to sell homes. But from a buyer standpoint, are you really ready to buy? You know, and we've had that discussion before. What's your why? Why do you want to buy a house? Why do you need to buy a house? All those things should come into play, and that'll be the topic of another show. But are you financially ready? Are you prepared? I get it that interest rates are at all-time lows again.
Yeah.
Right? Notice
Amazing.
I say again.
Yeah, right.
Because a few years ago when they were at, 3.5%, everybody was like, oh, we'll never see this again.
Right.
Well, now we're seeing 30-year fixed rates for around 3%.
Yeah.
I mean, I closed a 15-year loan at 2.5%.
Wow.
Unheard of. Mm-hmm. You know, in my lifetime to be talking about interest rates that low. And, we talked about that quite a few shows ago where I remember seeing interest rates at 14, 15, 16% for buying houses in the 80s.
Me too.
So now we're talking 2.5% for a 15-year, 3% for a 30-year fixed loan.
Money is cheap right now.
Money is cheap, and I guess that's why I wanted to at least talk about this. Is just because money is cheap may not mean it's time for you to buy.
Okay.
Just because you can afford it may not mean it's time. And again, I don't want to discourage people that are out there looking, but you really got to think about that because this is a huge investment when you make that decision. So, are you financially ready? There are costs related to not only the purchase, but ultimately maintaining that house once you do purchase the home.
Yeah, that's very, very true. You don't call the landlord to get something fixed. No, you are the landlord.
You own it. Landlord. You own it. It's your thing. So, when the furnace doesn't work, it's on you. Mm-hmm. When the AC doesn't work, it's on you. Light bulbs go out, it's on you. All of those things, once you own it, it's now yours. If things break, you have to fix them. So are you financially ready? So, part of that comes in when you write an offer. You'll need to submit earnest funds with that offer. And it's typically 1% of the purchase price. So if you're buying, a $100,000 house, 1% of that is what they're looking for. Now, in general, in our market, $500 for a $100,000 home is we see that a lot as far as earnest money goes.
Okay.
When you get up to $250,000, $300,000 houses, $1,000, $1,500 for earnest funds. So 1% is the industry average, but people don't calculate. Oh, it's 1%, and that's what I'm going to plug in there. We see a lot of $500,000, $1,500, $2,000. So you need to have at least that amount of money set aside. Because as soon as you write that offer and get it accepted, that earnest fund check is going to get deposited. Okay? So you need at least that much. Now, along with the earnest funds, you're going to have closing costs. And what are closing costs? They're the cost of working with a bank. Now, again, unless you're paying cash, you aren't going to have these lending costs. But lenders are going to charge you, in order to give you credit. So you're going to have to pay for an appraisal. So $500 plus or minus for the appraisal.
Okay.
You're going to have to pay for their origination fee. You're going to have a year's worth of homeowners insurance paid in advance. Those are all, there's a lot of miscellaneous fees that go into those closing costs, but typically between $2,500 and $3,500 for closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you negotiate it in the purchase agreement where the seller pays those on your behalf, you're going to have those funds. So, it's not just, hey, let's go buy a house. I have $500, let's buy a house. You're going to need those additional funds in order to get the loan closed, so ultimately you can buy that house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, having dollars set aside are an important part in the process. So that are you financially ready is definitely a key piece, and that's a big part of it.
All right, and we're going to dig a little deeper into that and like some of the closing costs, because a lot of times those are negotiated out.
Right.
And so we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. Are you financially ready to buy your home? All right, so we're going to talk more about this. Come up here next. You're listening to Real Estate in Real Time. Welcome back. You're listening to Real Estate in Real Time. I'm your host, Woody Zimmerman, here with Mark Skabowski of Remax Lakes, and we're talking about, are you financially ready to purchase a home? Now, we're talking basically the first home.
Yeah, well, any home. You're going to have closing costs when you buy.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're selling your house and you're going to use the proceeds from the sale of that house to buy the next one, we're talking closing costs, but there's also down payment. What type of financing are you going to use? And there's all different types of financing out there. That's why it's critical that when you're thinking about buying, you get in touch with a lender up front and get that pre-approval. Let them talk you through the best type of loan program for you, because there's a lot of them out there. As an agent, as a broker, I know a little bit about most of them. I wouldn't say all, but in general, not only are you going to have to pay earnest funds up front, you're going to pay for inspections, as things go,
right.
And inspections can run, $1,500, $2,000, depends on what you choose to have done. So those are all dollars that you have to front in order to get to the closing table, and then at the closing table, all the closing costs are going to come in.
Right.
So you're going to get credit for that earnest money. It isn't like it disappears and you'll never see it again, but out of pocket, before you even get to closing, you've got earnest funds, the inspections, the appraisal, and then the balance of the closing costs and or your down payment at the closing table.
Now, a lot of times for the buyer, you can get those closing costs. You can have it negotiated that the seller pays the closing costs.
You sure can. Although, as we've talked about, with the market being as competitive as it is, there's no free lunch.
Yeah, that's true. That's
right?
true.
There is no free lunch.
Sure.
If somebody's got to pay them, and if the seller's listed a house at $100,000 and it's on the market one day, and they've got 5 offers on it, which is probably not unlikely in today's marketplace, you're negotiating at a disadvantage to have the seller or ask the seller to pay $3,000 in closing costs. So if you offer $100,000 and you need $3,000 in closing costs, you're really only offering $97,000. So what we're seeing, the trend start again. We're offering $103,000, so the seller's seeing $100,000.
Gotcha.
So you can negotiate them, yes. But from my perspective, if you don't need to negotiate them, if you can pay them yourself, you're in a better position when it comes to competing against other offers.
Okay, now what about like real estate agent fees? Where
Sure.
are they in the mix?
So the seller pays the commission.
Okay.
In general. So all that a buyer's agent typically costs a buyer is a transaction fee. Most offices have a transaction fee of a couple $100. So it's, I guess this is self-serving, but it is truly money well spent for that buyer. They're getting the services of a professional for essentially the cost of the transaction fee. The seller is paying the commission.
Well, okay, so as a homeowner, there's a lot of things, going into a situation where, you're not thinking about, should I ask for appliances? Should I ask for, Should I ask them to take care of the closing costs? And then if I do and they say no, okay, I mean, if I'm doing it on my own,
Right.
I don't have, you know, the experience to know how to ask those questions properly. And that's where I think an agent makes their money, and that, you know, and every last penny of the money that they get, I mean, you know, because they can win that little tug of war on, you know, who's going to pay for what.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's what the agent is bringing to the table is knowledge and experience, and then the negotiation ability. It's not personal to the agent.
Right.
It is personal to you.
Yes.
So, you know, the agent knows, understands the laws, understands the contracts, all of those things. And we see a lot of for sale by owners close. And then we deal with the aftermath. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that I didn't own that part of the property. I didn't know that I could have had a survey. I didn't know that I should have had inspections. Now, most people know, but you know, they're negotiating directly with the seller. It's in the seller's best interest to sell to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
The buyer doesn't have any representation. So, you know, for sale by owners, just buyer beware. That's the only thing I can say to that.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anybody looking out for you on the purchase side.
And it's also peace of mind that you're getting the, you know, you're filling out the right paperwork and doing everything right. So I mean, yeah, they worth every penny. Okay, so we got closing costs, we've got appraisals, inspections, we got the down payment. And a lot of that fluctuates with the financing.
It does, and that again is the importance of dealing with the lender, so they can tell you not only what type of program that you can use, and there's multiple. There's a good old standard, and I hear it all the time. Oh, do I have to have 20% down in order to buy a house?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is no. There's a lot of it depends that go with that, but if you have good credit, 20%, and you have the 20% down, that is definitely the way to go. You're not going to pay mortgage insurance once you close the loan. Mortgage insurance is basically money that you pay an insurance company to make sure that the bank is going to get paid back for the mortgage.
Okay.
That's what mortgage insurance is.
Okay.
So at 20% down, you don't need mortgage insurance. But there are other programs. There is a 5% down conventional program that you do pay some mortgage insurance. Again, you need to have 20% equity to avoid paying that mortgage insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5% down conventional. There is 100% financing, which is USDA and VA. Those two programs are 100% financing. So you don't have to have 20% down in order to buy.
Okay.
Another program is FHA. 3.5% down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've went through a lot of acronyms and, you know, different loan programs. The importance of talking to a lender is I can't stress that enough for a buyer, so that you know the program that works best for you, that ultimately if you're trying to get payment, they can coordinate and get you the right payment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to get the reduced cost, get the reduced cost, but therefore the relationship with the lender is critical for you.
And so what we've said in the past, you know what ballpark you're playing in.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yep.
minor leagues, major league, you know, you just know exactly where you're playing it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good information. And bottom line, it all goes back to your why.
You got it. That's
All right.
the thing to think about.
Okay. I'm learning too. I'm learning.
Good deal.
All right. Contact information.
Sure, it's websites lakes-realtors.com. Phone number is 574-834-1233.
All right. You've been listening to Real Estate in Real Time. Have yourself a wonderful weekend.